Warning, the following video has flashing lights and also includes content that may be deemed inappropriate for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Bigfoot's Barbershop, aka Mr. Barber. It is always good to see you. Make your way into the darkness of the fox den to awaken me from my slumber for another Dogman expedition. You even did bring me something to feast on. Absolutely delicious. I do appreciate you releasing me from my shackles and allowing me to revamp myself. Now, without further ado, it is time for Mr. Barber and LordeStarfox to take a walk into the madness.
Stood up. I said, oh my god, it's a werewolf. And everybody in the car freaked out.
My creatures of the night. Yes, once again, it is Midnight Lycanthropy here on LordeStarfox Radio. Barber, my dude, how you doing tonight, man?
We're doing good. We are doing good.
That's pretty legendary stuff. Well, to the audience tonight, we're going to be diving into some very interesting evolutionary aspects of the good old wolves. Yes, the sea wolves, and we're not referring to orcas. Recently, I have been diving into the term sea wolves, and we're not referring to orcas. We are referring to actual wolves. And this species of wolves, which we might even call a subspecies now, because technically they are marine mammals, just like a polar bear now, off the island of Vancouver, up in this area. Well, they have been seen swimming from Vancouver to these islands and back and forth to other places, basically like what happened with the good old Kodiak bears. These wolves have been seen anywhere from 7.5 to 8 miles. They're assuming we'll be able to travel even further swimming. Before we start diving into some more interesting aspects that could now tie into Dogman, how do you feel about all that?
I had actually never heard of that. And the first thing that popped in my head was maybe there is some credibility to some of these underwater Dogman encounters where the one got the fishing line yanked and they're seen coming up in the water. So I had no idea that the wolves were swimming 8 miles, which would be each way, to get into a new food source and adapt so quickly.
I do believe they are following their food sources. This specific group of wolves really enjoys salmon. Yet that is so cool to watch this happen. And now it adds a whole nother element to the predatory food chain in the ocean in this specific area. Not even the ocean, maybe fresh water now, because if they're swimming out in the ocean this far, there's no reason now that they're not going to swim into fresh water. And I've already said that before. I've seen them chase elk and other sort of prey animals into water and swim for a bit, yet I had never been educated to the distance of what has been presented now.
I always knew they would swim, but I didn't know how well they would adapt. I forget the island, but they went where all these deer were on an island and decimated that deer population, which was thriving until the wolves figured out where the buffet was.
Yep.
And then once it was clean, they started chewing on the otters. So the fact that they were able to do that so quick, because I think that's how they, at one point wolves were pretty much gone in the lower peninsula of Michigan where I live. And yet now they're starting to pop back up. And I think they swim just across that narrow crossing area between, like by the Mackinac Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Or they can come across when it's frozen, which is, presumably how the mountain lions started appearing, was they just walked on the ice. The intelligence and ability to adapt is amazing.
With the whole swimming aspect too, not having to say again that dogmen have to be canine. Let's just roll with the aspect of the fact that it is for the remaining part of this episode. I have fielded some pretty interesting aspects of these supposed dogmen swimming, which now though also means if you've only seen the head of it, in actuality, maybe someone could have seen a wolf. It could have been swimming, because before people wouldn't have really put two and two together. But then there's other times where blatantly people have seen it with its arms and such bending over. With outer space, I'm going to be bold, but not really, because extraterrestrial life has already been proven with many life sources as extraterrestrial within the multiverses of the universe, because we do know there are so many different planets and solar systems. There is no way that there isn't something that we would consider to be intellectual that would be out there, right? We have a ton of intellectual species on our own planet. So let's just say that Sasquatch or Bigfoot or reptilians, doesn't have to be from the same planet, but what if they're coming from a planet where it was similar to how life started here, meaning there are some pretty interesting aspects that support certain species, specifically octopus, potentially might have been influenced by some sort of extraterrestrial, because they are not like anything that we've ever documented before. All life started in the ocean. Then it went to land, and then it went back to the ocean. Okay? There was no life on land until it started in the ocean, because there was no land at points in time. Why not have a universe or a solar system where those specific beings I mentioned were the dominant ones that evolved because we weren't in this situation? So they're coming from a similar planet, which could explain why people are seeing them here.
From what I understand, they've proven there are other dimensions once you get into, quantum physics and mechanics and thinning of the veil, where these beings appear in our dimension and then disappear back into their own. So, that's one of the theories. And yeah, we gotta be, that's the epitome of narcissism if we think we're the only intelligent life capable planet in the universe, when they're still discovering more suns and more, I believe the term is planets from the distance from the sun, the Goldilocks. How did they get here, and why are they still here? How come they don't get in the spaceship and go home?
That's a good question. Don't know. I have heard some interesting stuff that specifically maybe Sasquatch were looked upon as not worthy on these planets and kind of dumped off. So maybe they can't recreate the technology that did drop them off. Maybe the dogmen could be going back and forth in spaceships. It's interesting. I try to stay really scientific based, but I do know Jody has taken a ton of reports of people that claim they saw these dogmen and basically like halo get-ups.
No, I agree, and I've heard a lot of the same things, where maybe this is a prison planet where the ones that were naughty get dropped off and left here to fend for themselves. And So it just depends on who you're listening to. People love a mystery, and some of those mysteries they don't want solved because for some people, mystery's all they have in their lives. If the mystery gets solved, then what's left? And what if the mystery isn't solved to your liking? Well, we got a good example from a few shows ago. Look at the Gable film. That was a mystery for a while. It got debunked, or the truth came out, and people will make up stuff to literally counteract the truth from the original creator, just to say that he did it when it was actually real. So he, supposedly lying about creating it, because people don't want that mystery solved. That's the number one piece of Dogman evidence for a lot of people, and if it comes out fake, it's no different than when the Loch Ness monster uh, photo came out. The fact that it was one of those tiny little Captain Crunch soda submarines that you got in the cereal box with just a little plastic piece on it.
Makes sense right there, man. Preach, my dude. Well, back to these swimming wolves. A lot of people don't realize as well that they're even successful enough to hunt seals in the water and out of the water. My question to you now is, do you think sharks, as well as orcas and some of these other predators in this area, are going to clash with these wolves? Meaning, like you said, they're obviously smart enough to follow their food source, yet are they oblivious to what's in the water, or are they that desperate, or do they not care?
Oh, I think a shark or an orca, any type of predatory fish, if it's hungry, and if a seawolf happened to get on a sheet of ice, look how the orcas are smart enough to, when a seal does it, create a wave to wash it off. So I think that's why the wolves probably stay shallow. One, probably because they can't hold their breath like a polar bear, but I bet they will learn to adapt to do that.
You know what that reminds me of is some of the ancient species of hyenas they have found with successful evidence of preying on seals and also other marine mammals. Again, hyenas are not canines, all right? Yet now, majority of hyenas seem to be land-based. Yet if they've done it at one point in time, there's no reason why they wouldn't do it again.
Yeah, hyena reminds me of a polar bear build. Great big strong jaws and a long neck. Perfect for going into the snow or being able to go into deeper water, snag something. It's a long neck compared to the body. You compare a polar bear neck to a grizzly or a black bear, and grizzlies and black bears basically have no neck, where that polar bear has adapted the longer neck for going down the ice holes to get the seals and into the snow for the foxes and things like that.
Yeah, that's some pretty interesting stuff for sure right there. Bizarre. It also makes me think, even though Canadian wolves are huge, I was asking some of my science team this, what they thought, whether a spotted hyena or some of these sightings of what the people say is the Wahila, etc., Shaka Warren, if a Canadian gray wolf would be able to hold its own. Everyone came to the conclusion that the hyena would absolutely destroy it.
I mean, current times, probably the hyena. Maybe if you go back in time a little bit when they were both a little bigger and you got your dire wolf running around, maybe a different story. But if you're going by current, I would probably have to say the hyena.
Yeah, pretty interesting stuff. I'm actually going to read off a cool few statistics for you that we did come across. We'll start with the yellow baboon. It's around 4 to 5 feet long. It weighs anywhere from 30 to 65 pounds. It can run about 30 to 35 miles per hour. Does about 4 miles a day in cardio. Its bite force is 1,300 psi. Its vocalization range is 90 to 95 dB. Its pack size is anywhere from 150 to 300. Keep that in mind right there. So now we got the spotted hyena. Size 3 to 6 feet long, weight 80 to 200 pounds, speed 35 to 37 miles per hour, cardio around 50 miles per day, bite force 1200 psi, vocalizations 110 to 112 dB, pack size 130 to 150 or more, gray wolf, size 5 to 7 feet long, weight 70 to 180 pounds, speed 40 to 45 miles per hour, cardio 35 miles per day, bite force 1200 psi, vocalization 90 to 115 dB, pack size is anywhere from 30 to 400. And then the final one we have is your Kodiak bear, size 8 to 10 feet long, weight is anywhere from 1500 to 1700 pounds, speed is 35 to 40 miles per hour, can run about 40 miles per day. Its bite force is 1250 psi, vocalization range unknown, pack size unknown.
Yeah, you don't hear about a pack of bears running around.
You'd hope not, right? But like
Yeah.
we've talked about before, we only know around 60% of animal behaviors. What is the limit of what a pack is per se, right? I mean, what would be a small coyote pack? 4 to 5 maybe, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't realize that those packs would run that big. Baboons I knew would get up around 100, but I didn't know wolves would run in. I was thinking more around the range of 30-ish. Hyenas I didn't know, ran that big. I figured the bite force is so similar. I thought for sure the hyena was going to have the edge on that one.
Mm-hmm. The reason I had potentially mentioned that is a lot of times people always thought great white sharks were solitary hunters, but recently there's a lot of evidence supporting that they hunt in trios sometimes, which is very interesting.
Yeah, you have to be open to new behavior, because I do remember, I grew up in the age of, the lone great white, and now that they're studying them off that Guadalupe Island, they're showing where, one will get your attention while the other two kind of
So creepy.
coming from the sides. It's something that just occurred to me, and bringing it back to the sea wolf is it's really amazing. We always hear about evolution and adaptation, but the speed at which they do it.
As far as I know, this is a new thing that is being documented. It obviously doesn't mean it had to have just started happening yesterday, right? It could have been going on for a few years, yet the odds are probably not, because any sort of animal species that is protected is going to be documented, right? You have people that are paying attention, making sure they have healthy numbers. So I have a feeling this is probably a pretty recent development. If 10, 15 years ago, anyone was tried to be like, yeah, we're going to have these sea wolves that are swimming like 8 miles out into the ocean and other areas and attacking aquatic life, someone would have probably, told you to stop talking,
Yeah, if you would have told me before I watched the video that you're going to be out in your boat 4 miles offshore and they're going to see a wolf swimming, I'd have been like, there's no way that's happening. You imagine if you come across a wolf that's been swimming for 4 miles and you got a nice open canoe, how bad that wolf might want to get in that canoe.
Yeah, I can only imagine. That's something, again, I probably wouldn't fully want to test out. That is for sure. Creepy stuff right there. Is there anything else tonight, my guy, you would like to touch base on, or we let you get back to things you need to attend to?
No, I think we're good to go.
I do appreciate you always hanging out in the Fox Den and sitting here and nerding out with me for sure, my guy. I definitely look forward to our future endeavors.
Always my pleasure to come in and be able to, as you said, nerd out.
Ooh, you legends, you, my creatures of the night. I do adore every single one of you, and thank you for hanging out tonight. Please like, comment, subscribe, share the truth to the algorithm, and remember, there are things that go bump in the night.